Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and this is day 2 from my trip to the UK, in which I spent 2 days in England, in London, and 2 weeks in Scotland, traveling around, visiting distilleries, meeting the people there, and meeting a few fellow whiskey tubers. So on my first day, I visited Bimber Distillery, and on my second day, I took the train to sort of the heart and center of London, which I had actually visited before last year in June 2018 with Jason WHISKIES, who was kind enough to be my tour guide. So I kind of a little bit knew my way around this time. But near Buckingham Palace and the park that is there and the garden, there are a number of different tourist sites you can see. You can see Big Ben, you can see the Westminster Assembly, but you can also take a short walk to the Whisky Exchange, which for a whiskey lover is kind of like being a kid in a candy store. And at the Whisky Exchange, they have some bottlings that are exclusive to them, and they have a pillar because they know they have a lot of people that come in and say, hey, you got anything that's exclusive that I can't get in the United States? They have a pillar with bottles around it that are exclusive to them. And if you look out throughout the rest of the shelves, you can find some other bottles that are exclusive to them. And one of them is this Whiskey Trail. This is an Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. This is from Kalila. It is a 1999 vintage. It was bottled in 2011, so it's 12 years old. It's bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. So I wanted something from the Whisky Exchange. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to buy just to fill up your luggage right there, you know, because there's so much there that you can't get here in the United States. But I wanted something exclusive that's not available anywhere else but the Whisky Exchange. So this is what I got, and I've already got it past the neck pour, and I really like this. But one of the other things I got to do, in addition to visiting Buckingham Palace and going to the Whisky Exchange, was to meet up with a fellow whiskey tuber. So another short walk from the Whisky Exchange is my favorite hangout, which is Milroys of SOHO, which I visited with Jason WHISKIES in 2018. So my second visit to Milroy's in SOHO, was warmly greeted by the owner, Eddie. Super fantastic guy there. But I got to taste some really unique whiskeys. There's so much there that you can't get here in the United States, not just in terms of new bottlings and what gets distributed, but there's old bottlings as well. So if you go to a whiskey bar, what you want to really look out for is those rare, out of production, perhaps even no longer functioning distilleries, ones that are closed. So I got to taste a number of different unique whiskeys. So while I was at Milroy's, I got to taste a Glen Albin, which is a closed distillery. It's an independent bottling from Gordon and MacPhail. It was distilled in 1976. And I met up with Evan from Top Whiskies. And we had a Springbank 25 and a really cool GlenDronach 22-year-old from another independent bottling company from the Silver Seal Whiskey Company, which was distilled in 1990 and bottled in 2013. So it was 13 years old. Top Whiskies is one of my favorite whiskey channels because everything they do is really unique. They have a unique style, unique profile, unique approach. Evan and the man behind the camera, Ed, are really cool people. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to meet up with Ed. Ed had actually dropped in to Milroy's the day before looking for me. But I was over at Bimber Distillery, and I was at Bimber Distillery a lot longer than I thought I would, so I didn't make it over on the previous night. I got to meet up with Evan and had a really good time. Now, this is a whiskey bar, and as whiskey bars can be, it can be a little dark, right? Dimly lit, a little bit of noise going on there. And if you go to the back of the bar, there is a bookshelf that you can kind of push open, and you go down into the speakeasy downstairs where it's really dark. I went down there last year. You can see my photos from there, from my video from last year when I visited there with Jason WHISKIES. But we had an absolutely fantastic time hanging out and talking about whiskeys and our shared experience and our channels. Hey, so we are at Milroy's in SOHO, my favorite hangout place in all of London. And I've got a special guest with me. You may know him from Top Whiskies. Introduce yourself.
I'm Evan from Top Whiskies.
So really, really happy to meet him. He's actually one of my favorite channels on YouTube because they're not doing a standard "Hi, my name's so and so" review. A little more artful, a lot of craftsmanship, a lot of whiskey news, and a lot of humor involved. So I've just really, really enjoyed your videos, and it's really great to meet up here.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
So, in case you guys aren't familiar, I'll put a link down below. So we're at Milroy's, and I'll show you some photos and video of the bar. Fantastic place, very, very small, but excellent selection. And we are currently enjoying really fancy bottle. Put a picture up there. This is an independent bottler. The independent bottler doesn't exist anymore. This is a Silver Seal Whiskey company. This is a GlenDronach. It doesn't look like a GlenDronach. Kind of a fancy label there. This is a 22-year-old. And we killed the bottle. No, we didn't. we didn't start from the top. We basically got the end of the bottle. We didn't start at the top. But it's really, 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 really nice. All right. Anyway, so thanks for having me on, Ed.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So we've had a few before we come live. Although I'm still quite lively. I'm not ready to go under the table just at the moment.
Give it 20 minutes.
So in case you guys don't know, so you obviously don't sound like you're from around here.
No.
So tell the viewers where you're originally from.
Yeah, so I'm from California originally. But
California? You can't trust the people from California. They're kind of wacky. So how long you been here in England?
I've been in the UK for 10 years.
Wow. So are you still an American citizen?
I am still an American citizen. I have indefinite permission to remain.
Okay.
Which means that they can't kick me out, which is nice. Good. Because you always run that risk of doing something really bad and them deciding to kick you out. So no.
Oh, that's interesting.
They can't kick me out anymore.
So so if Trump becomes the prime minister, that might change.
So I think it's unlikely that would happen, but
not to get too political here. So now you speak both American and English?
Yes, I'd like to think I'm fluent in English and American.
Oh, nice. So what are you doing over here? What originally brought you over here?
So I came up for
the whiskey. It was probably the whiskey.
The whiskey.
Probably the whiskey.
Actually, so when I came to the UK, I knew nothing of whiskey. The only thing I knew about whiskey is that it went really well with Coke.
There you go.
Little. Yeah, exactly. No, not that. I was one to enjoy a Jack and Coke,
nice.
and I still am. It's still a good drink.
Sure.
But I didn't really know anything about whiskey. But I thought that drinking whiskey would make me seem cooler and more sophisticated.
Especially if you put your pinky out like
this. That's what I do. So so I thought if I drink whiskey, put my pinky up, girls would think I'd be cooler.
There you go.
So that didn't work. But I developed more of an appreciation for whiskey.
Awesome. So then how did you get into doing a whiskey tuber channel? And I mean, your take to an approach was really, really different. So what got you into wanting to do a whiskey channel and then do it the way you're doing it?
Well, so my best friend Ed, so he and I do the videos together, and we were looking for something really fun to do together, and whiskey was something that we actually kind of came into it in a really interesting way. We were working at an insurance company. Hopefully that doesn't bore everyone already. But around the corner from our insurance company was this really cool bar. So like a 5-star hotel, but they had this great whiskey bar.
What town was that in?
This was in York.
York? Okay.
So sort of in the north, well, depending on where you draw the line. Some people say anything above London is North England.
Okay.
But somewhere in the middle. Is York, which is an amazing town, really historical, great wall. If anyone is into walls, it's a really cool.
See, Trump's into walls.
He's into walls, not this kind of wall. Actually, interesting story. So if you're Scottish and you are inside the walls in York, it is legal to shoot you with a bow and arrow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So still a written law on the record. You can kill a Scotsman if he is inside the wall. I
will make a note of that. Okay, but you originally came down here to go to work. You came out here to.
So there was this great bar, restaurant, hotel, and they did a whiskey tasting every Sunday night, which is a bit aggressive to be having whiskey. And Ed and I would go with a lot of our friends from Viva, and we were all about maybe 24, 25 at the time. And we're just sort of getting into whiskey. And there was another group of guys who were quite a bit older than we were, and we probably wouldn't normally be talking to socially because they were kind of in a different life stage from us. But we'd go and we'd have these whiskey tastings, and it just really brought us together. And so so here we are, a group of 25-year-olds having whiskeys with these 65, 70-year-old guys, and it was really cool that we had something in common that really brought us together. And we had these amazing conversations, and Ed and I just thought this is something that we want to replicate, and we think that more people should be getting into whiskey.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things about whiskey does is, I mean, political schemes, language, philosophy, whatever, your religion, whatever else, is you can have something in common in whiskey and yet still come together and hang out even if you don't agree on these other things.
Well, and so it brings people together.
Ages, different ages.
Well, I mean, age only makes it better.
Right, there you go.
But so it's something we really liked, and we wanted to replicate that. And we thought that a lot of our friends probably didn't like whiskey, and a lot of that is because whiskey feels inaccessible.
Right.
Yeah, and you've got all these names that no one can pronounce. It seems just like it's four old men sat in leather armchairs. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy a whiskey in a leather armchair. And
then the history of whiskey that has been a challenge with Japan. The reason why consumption in Japan went down was because the next generation, it wasn't their thing.
Yeah.
And the same things, the old Scottish whiskey advertisements had guys with kilts and hunting dogs.
Exactly.
So they had to sort of change their advertising and marketing branding in order to reach a different age generation.
Yeah, and so Ed and I wanted to create a channel and make something that'd be fun and creative and be a way to get more people to enjoy whiskey, because we enjoyed it so much.
Right.
And we were just looking for something that would be fun and creative.
Right, and bringing a lot of humor. I think that's probably one of the funny thing is, so information and entertainment are, you can have so much information that it gets dry, and you can have so much entertainment that it's sort of just nonsensical. It's just tongue-in-cheek, and a lot of people do that, and that's fine. But if you can do infotainment where you're educating and bringing in entertainment, and that's sort of a magic combination you can bring in the two.
Yeah, well, that's what we try to do, is because we think that whiskey should be fun, and that's what gets us really excited about it.
So you originally came out here to go to school.
Yep.
And then you just decided, hey, I like this place so much, I'm just going to stay here?
Well, it was never the plan. I always wanted to go back to the U.S., and I had no intention of staying. But so I came over, did my course, and then I thought, okay, ready to go back to the U.S. But then I thought, wow, they have graduate schemes in the U.K., which we don't really have in the U.S. And so it's a chance to go and work for a big company, and you do sort of placements around the business.
Okay.
And so it's 2 years, and you get to do 6 months in different parts of the business.
Okay, so it's almost like an internship?
Sort of like it's like a super internship.
Okay.
And I thought, that seems really cool. So I should do that, and then I can go back to the U.S. and I've got a degree, and I have some really interesting international experience. I will be eminently employable, and so I'll go into that. So I did that, really enjoyed the graduate scheme, but then this really cool opportunity came up to work. So when I was at uni here, I got really into rugby. And the company I was working for was Aviva, and Aviva had a sponsored Premiership Rugby.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to work on the team that does the Premiership Rugby sponsorship, and that just really appealed to me because those kinds of jobs are pretty difficult to get. And so I thought, well, I'll do that, and I did it. Turns out I hated it, which was not ideal. And then thought, well, I better get some real skills. So I went and did another job with the same company that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
And at that point, I had been in the UK for so long that it kind of started to feel like home.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's just like since then I've just sort of stayed.
So we're here at Milroy's. The selection here is really, really nice. I'll show you some videos of the selection, and they have a sort of a speakeasy down below, sort of this dark bar down below, and they do also cocktails downstairs. I was here in 2018, June 2018, with Jason Whiskey Wise, and I'm hoping he's going to pop in tonight. He's probably working late. He has a new job in the industry, but I'm hoping he's going to pop in tonight. So he's the one to introduce me to this place. I fell in love with this place. There's nothing like this in California. If you were to go back to California, you'd be like, oh, where's my whiskey hanging out? They don't have anything like this. This place it's very small, but it's also just really cool. And Eddie, you know, I don't know, he's the manager here. He's super nice guy. Really nice people here. So, do you get up to Scotland very often, or what's that here?
So, not as often as I'd like, obviously, because I'd love to be there all the time. But it is pretty easy. So we try to go up there fairly regularly.
Right. Because the trip from here to actually just to get up to Glasgow, I think California is like the difference between where you're from and where I'm from. I mean, it's not that far apart.
Yeah.
So you could easily get there pretty quickly.
It's even closer than that because so you think like if you you can get in a plane and you can be there in like 45 minutes.
So right now, we were talking about this earlier. Right now, gin is super popular. You know, it's a cocktail. And if you watch my Scotch history videos, I talk about in the end. There's this symbiotic relationship between gin and Scotch because young distilleries can produce gin while they're waiting for their whiskey to age. So there's sort of that relationship there on a business wise. So, but this place, I mean, there's the Whiskey Exchange, there's other whiskey bars here. So there is, even if Scotch isn't the most popular and gin is, it's still, there's a lot of access here.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are loads of fantastic places. So like Milroy's is a perfect example, and like this is a proper whiskey geeks hangout. And you get loads of people that go to the bar who will be talking to the bar staff here who are all brilliant, know everything. So it's great. Like you said, the Whiskey Exchange is good. Scotch Malt Whiskey Society is really good. And so that's a club that is in Edinburgh and in London as well. And actually, I think they've got bars in Asia, and then might even have one in New York, but I might be making up the New York.
I would love to have one in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And Ben, if you're watching this, he's a rep for Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. I'd love to have one in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Is he like in the Midwest Chicago area, if I recall? I think so.
Might be. I mean, I've obviously only been to the ones in Scotland and London, but they're brilliant. And it's a good place where you can go, you can enjoy great whiskey, and you can chat with people that also enjoy great whiskey.
So if I were to live here, I'd probably go broke.
Probably,
because there's a lot of when you go into a shop, you go, can't get it, never heard of it, can't get it, never heard of it, can't get it, never heard of it. So, like for example, we're drinking this. It's an independent bottler. That the independent bottler doesn't exist, and then they have independent bottlers. Earlier I had a Glen Albin, which is a defunct distillery. It doesn't exist anymore. So there's a lot of stuff you can't even get here. You can't even have it shipped in the United States here. So I mean, San Francisco, I would say does better than say living in the Midwest. In the United States. Or say in Kansas or something like that. But even here, there's just so much stuff here, and you can't take it all home in your luggage, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can't. No. On the plus side, though, you get much better clam chowder. You try to find a good clam chowder in London.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking. They're going to be looking for clam chowder.
Yeah, and if you ask for it in a bread bowl, they look at you like you're insane.
Yeah, and if I were to go to Scotland, I wouldn't be going there for the cuisine, though.
No, that's probably true.
There's nothing wrong with a good haggis, and I like my iron brew. But other than that.
Well, iron brew the day after you've had a big whiskey night. Perfect.
There you go.
And that sugar goes right to your head.
So I'm hoping to bring home a couple bottles. So what have you got going on with your channel now? I know you were working on a project on production, and you did spend some time at a distillery?
Glenfiddich. So yes, we spent a week living at Glenfiddich. So we've got a video coming out where we go through the production process, and behind the scenes we had a really great opportunity to see how Glenfiddich goes about making their whiskey, but not just Glenfiddich, but also Balvenie as well.
Right.
So we spent loads of time at Balvenie, which like Springbank, is one of the only distilleries that still malts its own barley. Does the whole process by hand. It's like really sort of a good boutique craft process.
Cool.
And it was amazing to see it firsthand. So yes, we've got that coming up. And we're continuing to try to do sort of different types of videos.
Okay, cool.
We'll keep doing some of our whiskey news, which is, I think, really fun.
Right. And I actually really, because you use humor, but also keep people up to date, is to what's going. And there's so much stuff going on right now in the industry. It's just crazy trying to keep up with all.
Yeah, and so the idea is trying to make it a lot easier for people to be able to know what's happening in the world of whiskey in kind of a fun way. So we do that, and then we've got our whiskey wars as well. So we take two whiskeys and try them side by side, not to necessarily say this whiskey's better than that one.
Okay.
But I don't know, actually I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it. But for me, I find when I try two whiskeys side by side, that are like completely different types of whiskey.
Right.
I can pick out different flavors.
It's kind of by contrast.
Exactly.
Right. It's one thing to look at something on its own, but then put a piece of white paper behind it and you see the contrast. It really makes it stand out.
Exactly, and particularly if you try a whiskey that does one thing particularly well, and then you try another whiskey that's not doing that.
So, and actually in doing tastings, you have to be aware of that, because if you start off with something peated and then you go to non-peated, you've kind of screwed up. Or sweetness, if you start off with a really sweet wine and then you go to a drier wine, the dry wine will seem bitter.
Yeah. So
in terms of doing a lineup, you have to be aware of that contrast as well. But anyway, so we're going to continue drinking here. We're not done for the night. I just want to get together and do a quick video here. If you're ever in London, you've got to check out Milroy's. And if you see Eddie, tell him Erik Wait sent you. All right, until next time. Cheers. So I hope you understand why it was sort of dimly lit. The focus on the camera wasn't perfect. When you're in a dark room, the autofocus doesn't work perfectly, and we're in a very small area, and there's a little bit of noise in the background, but I thought it came out actually pretty good. And we actually hung out a lot longer, and Eddie brought us some special whiskeys there. He's a fantastic host there, and as much as I would like to go directly to Scotland again next year in 2020, I really love that place, so I'm probably going to be dropping in again in 2020. So let's get into this whiskey. Again, it's an exclusive, and throughout most of my videos from this series, my trip to Scotland, there's going to be a lot of distillery exclusives that you can't get anywhere else. And while you may say, well, I can't go out and get that, I'm hoping this is sort of a motivation to, an additional motivation to take a trip and do the voyage and take the journey to Scotland and visit distilleries. So I opened this before and got it past the neck. It's been open for a little bit. This is probably my third glass out of it. I've got pretty good past the neck pour. I would say this is really sort of a classic, well-rounded, nothing radical Kalita. If you're a peat lover and you're really, really into peat, you might consider this a medium peated whiskey. If you're new to peat, or you haven't been into peat or tasted any peat, this is going to seem intensely peaty to you, right? So how we think something, how loud something is, or how intense something is going to be relative to our previous experience, right? So if you're into Laphroaig, you're into Ardbeg, into Lagavulin, this is probably, in terms of the way it's perceived on the palate, I would say medium to medium minus in comparison to the Lowland Isle distilleries. So one of the things I like about this is how everything is interwoven. You don't get a rush of peat and smoke and have to sort of dig for everything else. It's all interwoven. So I get fudge, I get peat, I get a little bit of chocolate covered peanut candy bar, maybe a Snickers bar. I get some grilled stone fruits and some maybe a little bit of orange spice, a little bit of pepper, perhaps a little bit of clove. A little bit of earthiness to it. All right, on the palate. If you want a peated whiskey, but you don't want to get smacked with it, and you want a whiskey that you don't need to tinker with, hey, I need to add some water, I need to let it open up, I need to cool it down or chill it out with some ice, or any way to sort of mess with it. This is straight from the bottle, even from a neck pour, good to go. Someone has already taken the time and the thought to get it where it needs to be, so that's immediately enjoyable. Nothing is super extreme in any direction. It has a medium sweetness. It has a medium or moderate silkiness, mouth coating of feel. It doesn't radically change from the front to the middle to the finish. It's just very moderate all the way through. The smoke and the peat is well integrated. It's very moderate. It has a nice long finish. I would say if there's anything that is more than medium or moderate, it's going to be the finish. It has a nice long finish. I get the grilled apples. I get grilled stone fruits. I get a little bit of that chocolate covered nuttiness to it. Get the campfire interwoven with it. It doesn't have necessarily like super strong oceanic influences, although just a hint of saltiness. So it's almost like a chocolate covered salted peanuts, if you describe it that way. It's just a nice, easy drinking. It's not super thought provocative. It's not one you're going to sit there and contemplate, you know, and really meditate and think about how it delivers and the journey. This is not going to take you on a journey. This is a simple sipper, nice drinking dram. Say, and there are times for that. There are some times in which you want something that's just going to smack you upside the face, you know, like an Ardbeg Supernova. Or there's sometimes you want something that's just uber complex and it's going to take you on a journey. And then there's sometimes you're focused on something else. Maybe you're reading a book, maybe you're watching a movie, maybe you're just hanging out talking to friends. And so it's going to be more about the conversation, but whatever else you're talking about, not necessarily focused on talking about the whiskey. That is, I would say, is the play for this. Or even if you're going to make a cocktail and you want to use a little bit something peated in it, I would say it reaches that point as well. If there's any sort of comparable in terms of the delivery and the palate and the profile, it's probably the Highland Park Magnus, although as an Orkney peated whiskey, it has its very distinctive flavors. But in terms of the overall structure of the whiskey, the intensity of the flavor, its sort of moderate complexity and length of finish, it's sort of like Isla's version or response to or parallel or twin to a Highland Park Magnus. That's sort of the way that I would put this. Now, what am I going to give it in terms of a score? I'm going to go 88 points. I'm not wowed by it. I'm not disappointed by it by any stretch of imagination. This is going to be one that I'm going to sort of, without thought, I'm doing something else. I'm going to grab this bottle, pour myself, and then sit at my computer typing or editing videos or watch a movie or watch a fellow whiskey tuber. That's sort of the play of this whiskey. And so if you're there and that's what you're looking for, then I think this is going to hit the spot. Alrighty, so that's it for this video and this review. I want to thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you want to be notified when I go live, when I post a new video, there's a bell down there that you can ring, and YouTube is supposed to notify you. And if you are a subscriber of mine, been watching for a long time, I want to thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy my sharing of my journey to Scotland, and I'm hoping I'll be back in 2020. All right, until next time, cheers. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.